Part 54. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 531. Hearing Wang Feng's words, Kavya frowned. Ogres. Those damn things haven't appeared for a long time. Did they go to your Dongzhou continent? Are you here to ask for reinforcements? Bar. Of course not, but this matter is rather important, so please tell your leader. If you don't prepare in advance, your base may be wiped out in an instant, Wang Feng said solemnly. After carefully looking at Wang Feng's expression and feeling that he was not joking, Kavya finally nodded. Then wait, I'll talk to the captain. After saying that, Kavya turned around and walked into the guard tower, and used the phone inside to contact people in the inner city. Although Kavya was the captain of the outer city guard team, his actual power was not great, and he had the power talks directly to their leader, and they can only tell the captain of their escort team about the matter first, and the captain decides whether to alert the leader. After a while, Kavya walked out of the sentry tower, then looked at Wang Feng and said, "You guys wait here, the captain said he will come over to see you right away." Wang Feng frowned, but did not speak, just nodded. He also knew that he was an outsider here, and it would be unrealistic to directly meet their leader. Therefore, although Wang Feng was quite anxious now, but there is no other way. Feng. Are you saying that the ogre may appear again? Inovik looked at Wang Feng and asked. On the previous trip, Inovik only asked about Dongzhou continent and the Hope base, but he didn't ask Wang Feng what happened to the leader of the Avengers. In his opinion, maybe Wang Feng wanted to hang out in Bazhu continent for a while, so he wanted to establish a good relationship with the forces here first, but now listening to Wang Feng's meaning, it seems that it is not what he thought. Especially since the ogre was involved, Inovik suddenly became concerned. It's not possible, it will definitely happen, and it will be a large-scale invasion. Wang Feng glanced at Inovik and didn't hide anything. Anyway, the captain hasn't come yet, so it doesn't matter if he briefly talks to them first. At least Inovik is a pretty good person. Let him be mentally prepared first, so that the acquaintance is not in vain. Inovik, the Devourers you met before are actually just the vanguard of the Devourer army, equivalent to scouts. Behind them, there is a huge army, led by the Devourer brood, heading towards us. The planet moves forward. Wang Feng looked up at the sky, took a deep breath and said, in less than a year, they will arrive here. By then, it is likely that the real Doomsday will come. An army of Devourers, Inovik, Christoph and Kavya exclaimed together, "Are you telling the truth?" Wang Feng smiled bitterly and said, "I also hope that this news is false, but unfortunately, the crisis of mankind will indeed come in less than a year. They are aliens." "How did you know?" Kavya asked Wang Feng. "Because I have fought against the Devourers many times in Dongzhou continent." "Do you know why the Devourers on your side suddenly disappeared?" "It's because I killed one of their two commanders." Wang Feng explained, "The vanguard of the Devourers only has tens of thousands of people. They came here in a huge spaceship. There are only two commander-level Devourers. One of them has been killed by me, and their spaceship was also destroyed by us. It is because of this change that the Devourers here suddenly disappeared. It should be their commander who summoned them all back. These Devourers are a very ferocious race. Whether they are humans or other creatures, as long as they are alive, they are their food. And their ultimate purpose in coming to us is to completely destroy our planet. Moreover, the most terrifying thing about them is that their military strength is basically endless. No matter how many people die, as long as they have enough life energy, they can continuously replenish their troops. Fighting such an enemy is not a pleasant thing in any case. The only way to really deal with them is to kill their brood, because the Devourers we see are all created by the brood of. But this brood will not come to our planet. It will only hide near our planet. If we want to kill it, we need to go to outer space to fight. As for how to go, I haven't thought about it yet. God. Wind. Do you know? When I first saw you, I thought you would be my lucky star, because you gave us such a big city as soon as you appeared. Inovik cried out, now I feel that the price of that city seems to be a little too high. I regret knowing this matter. God, after knowing this matter, I will never have it in the future. What a good mood. Inovik. Whether you know it or not, the Devourer Legion will come to us. No one can stop it. If we want to survive, we must kill that brood. There is no other way. This is an extinction event war. If we fail, no one will survive, absolutely everyone will die. Wang Feng looked at Inovik and said, if you have confidence, then work hard to improve your strength and prepare to teach those sons of bitches a lesson when the Devourer army arrives. If you don't have confidence, just go to Lucas City, kill all the zombies there, earn more alliance coins, and then stay in the inner city to enjoy the last year of your life. I will seriously consider your suggestion. Inovik thought about it carefully and said, it's a good idea to indulge in a year of revelry. Christopher also said at this time, Inovik, if you want to enjoy it, I think we should gather people now and exchange the zombies and supplies in Lucas City for alliance coins as soon as possible, otherwise, we will have no money to squander. From Christoph's words, it can be heard that he actually doesn't believe Wang Feng's words, but because Wang Feng has given them a big gift, he didn't directly refute Wang Feng, which is considered to save his face. Wang Feng naturally wouldn't explain anything. Anyway, he just came here to bring the news of the Devourer because they were all human beings. As for who would take it seriously, that was not something he could decide. That's right, Chris, go find someone now, and remember to make the conditions clear. Those guys are quite greedy. I want to stay here and see how the Avengers top brass view this matter. Inovik patted Christopher on the shoulder and said, go. It's easy to find people. We don't need both of us to go. Okay. It's up to you then, Christopher shrugged and said indifferently, then turned and left. Just as Christopher walked out a few dozen meters, a jeep drove over from the direction of the inner city. It seemed that this was the captain of the escort team. In terms of time, they came quite quickly. The jeep came all the way to Hurricane, and then several people jumped out of the car. The leader was about 50 years old, wearing a snow camouflage uniform and 2 meters tall, which made their race's nickname Polar Bear seem worthy of its name. Kavya hurried to the man, stood at attention and saluted, saying, report to the captain. It is this Oriental man who wants to see the leader, and he also said that the ogres will invade our planet in a year. The captain of the escort returned a military salute, and then looked at Wang Feng and the others, but it was only a short stop, and most of his attention was still on the Hurricane. The jeep they drove was also a special military one, with a machine gun on it. It was definitely not small, at least compared to ordinary civilian cars. It was much larger, but now it was parked next to Hurricane. It looked quite small and exquisite. Hurricane armor was the world's top military vehicle at the time. Of course, countries around the world have collected its information, but because it is not sold to the public, it has always been a secret. Although Wang Feng's country has also announced its detailed data, everyone knows that this is only official data and cannot be accurate. After all, no one will easily reveal their true cards. Hello, Lieutenant General. My name is Wang Feng, the top leader of the Hope Base in the East Continent. I hope to meet with your top leader. I have some information about the Devourer, which is what you call the ogre, that I can share with you. Wang Feng stepped forward and came to the captain of the guard. He saluted and said that the captain of the guard had 2 general stars on his shoulders, which means that his rank is lieutenant general. The captain of the guard glanced at Wang Feng casually, then nodded and said, okay. Let's go to the inner city first. The attitude of the captain of the guard made Wang Feng frown, but after thinking about it, he still didn't get angry. He just nodded and walked towards the hurricane. Wait, seeing Wang Feng's actions, the captain of the escort suddenly said, "We have to drive this car in. The inner city is the center of our base. To enter the inner city, this car needs to be kept by us temporarily. We can only return it to you when you leave." Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 532. Wang Feng stopped, then turned around and looked at the guard captain, sneering in his heart, "Keeping it temporarily?" It can be seen from the greedy look in this guy's eyes that if the hurricane is really handed over to them, it will be weird to get it back. Okay. Since we can't drive into the inner city, we can park it here. As for leaving it to you for safekeeping, that's no need. For us men in Zizhu, the car is like a woman and cannot be handed over to others at will. Wang Feng looked at the captain and said calmly, "That's your rule in the West continent. We're in the Bizhu continent now. Remember you're saying that when you're in the countryside, do as the Romans do." The guard captain's face instantly turned cold when he saw Wang Feng disagreeing. "I suspect there are prohibited items in your car. Get all your people out of the car. We want to inspect it." Prohibited items. Wang Feng's face also turned cold. He kindly came to tell them the information about the devourer. Unexpectedly, these idiots wanted to seize his hurricane when they saw it. They didn't care at all about what he brought. Intelligence. This is the end of the world. Where did the prohibited items come from? On the way here, Wang Feng had already heard Innovik introduce their place. Although there were rules in the inner city, they just couldn't kill and rob casually. There were no taboos on other things. Porn, gambling, and drugs are all normal entertainment in the inner city. After all, in this dangerous apocalypse, no one knows whether they will come back alive next time they go out, so no one would even think about saving money. Money and stuff like that. No matter how many alliance coins I earn, I will squander them all in a dream. When I run out of money, I will set out again to find supplies and zombies, get them back and exchange them for alliance coins, and then continue to squander. This kind of life has become a unified life pattern for the corpse hunting team. This is how they go through cycle after cycle, until, after he went out that day, he never came back. Now the guard captain actually thought of using prohibited items as an excuse to get all Wang Feng's people out of the car. He knew with his knees that after they got on the bus, they would definitely find a lot of prohibited items. Entering the inner city and coming back is probably more difficult than destroying the devourer's brood. "Mr. Captain, can you tell me first, what do you mean by prohibited items? I want to think about it and see if I have any in my car." Wang Feng looked at the captain with an unkind look on his face. Asked. "Huh? I don't have time to explain this to you. If we find prohibited items, we will naturally tell you," the guard captain said impatiently. "Get your people out of the car quickly. If you want to enter the inner city, you must accept our inspection." "Oh. So that's it," Wang Feng nodded, then waved his hand and said, "Okay. We won't go in. When the devourer turns you into an old man, remember to say hello to him for me." Afterwards, Wang Feng turned around, patted Innovik on the shoulder and said, "Innovik, remember what I just told you. Remember, you only have less than a year. How to choose is up to you." "Stop!" Behind Wang Feng, the guard captain suddenly shouted, and then waved his hand, and all the guards who came with him pointed their guns at Wang Feng and others. "I suspect that you are spies who have sneaked in. Now I will take you to the headquarters for questioning. You'd better not resist. If it proves that you have no problem, we will naturally let you go." "Spies?" Wang Feng turned around and looked at the guard captain. "Excuse me. Whose spies are we? The zombies? Or the devourers? Don't you just want to watch my car? Do you want to stay? Again, are you bothered by the fact that the spy is carrying prohibited items?" We are not going to see your leader now. We are leaving immediately. Isn't this also okay? Wang Feng looked at the captain with murderous intent in his eyes and said. Of course not. Seeing Wang Feng's strong performance, the guard captain hesitated for a moment, but immediately gritted his teeth and decided to stick to it. One was that the hurricane was very tempting to him. As a senior military official, of course he would not like a Novik or Kavya, they just treat the hurricane as a more windy car. The other is because now he is riding a tiger and his men are watching. If he just retreats like this, he may never be able to raise his head in front of them again. If he didn't have the idea of making a hurricane at the beginning, then no one will say anything, but if you back down now, you will be looked down upon. You have to go back with us and accept our review. Once we confirm that you are not spies, we will naturally let you go. The guard captain looked at Wang Feng and said, while gesturing to signal his men to start alerting. No need to go to so much trouble. Wang Feng shook his head and said, don't you want to see the prohibited items? I might as well just show them to you. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Feng activated the blast in an instant, and his figure circled around those who were pointing guns at him as fast as lightning. Then, Wang Feng appeared in front of the guard captain, holding the blade of apocalypse in his hand. Across his neck. Do you think the weapon in my hand is considered contraband? Wang Feng looked at the guard captain and said coldly. At this time, he could see that the guard captain was able to sit in this position for a reason. Although he did not expect Wang Feng to be so fast, he suffered a loss for a while, but he did not show any signs of it. Any sign of panic. Young man. This is our territory. If you go against us, you won't get anything good. The guard captain looked at Wang Feng and said calmly. I think I should correct you, Wang Feng sneered. I'm here because we are all humans, and I want to tell you some information about the Devourer. I didn't expect that you have been staring at it since you arrived here. Watch my car. Obviously, your interest in this hurricane far exceeds the information I brought. In this case, I don't need to worry about it. Anyway, before the end of the world, our relationship was not so harmonious. Your life and death, to be honest, has nothing to do with me. Now remember, I won't kill you this time, but you'd better not use any more crooked ideas. My patience has never been good. After Wang Feng finished speaking, he took Apocalypse back, then turned and left. Looking at Wang Feng's back, the guard captain's expression was ugly. He hesitated and looked at his subordinates, including the guards who were originally on duty here. There were 17 or 18 people under his jurisdiction here. Individual. As for members of the corpse hunting team such as Inovik and Christopher, they do not accept his orders and are free persons. Of course, if you pay, you can also temporarily command them to do things. At this time, seeing what was happening here, especially the windy hurricane parked here, a lot of people had gathered around and stood at a distance to watch the fun. Most of them were corpse hunters. The members of the team either didn't go out or were preparing to go out. They saw the excitement here, so they gathered over one after another. Time is not so urgent in the apocalypse, because there are no mortgages or car loans, and there is no need to worry about children's schooling. Therefore, as long as you have food for today, you can rest today. As for where is the food for tomorrow? That is something you need to consider only tomorrow. At least, you need to be able to survive until tomorrow. Therefore, the survivors now like to watch the excitement more than the people before the apocalypse, especially when they find out that there is an Avengers Guard team here. Of course they are even more curious. So, in just a few minutes, hundreds of people had gathered nearby, but they didn't get too close. It's not as good as before the apocalypse. If the two sides fight, a supernatural power will fly out and hit them. Face, that's not fun. Looking at his men, he found that none of their guns had gone. At this time, they were also looking at each other with confused expressions. Wang Feng had taken the gun. Of course they knew this, but the problem was their own gun. Where was that damn guy hiding? Is he a magician? Of course Inovik and Christopher knew where their guns were, but they did not say anything. Although the Avengers were the actual controllers of Dilit City, free men like Inovik were they don't have a cold. This is just their shelter, and this outer city is not under the jurisdiction of the Avengers at all. Although there are Avengers guards at several entrances and exits, no matter what happens in the outer city basically, they will not interfere in matters. The actual control area of the Avengers is only the inner city, but you cannot enter the inner city without money. Unless you join the Avengers, you will be controlled by them forever, otherwise, you have to pay. Some of these free people in the outer city are dissatisfied by the Avengers, and some are because they don't like restraint, but in any case, the relationship between the Avengers and these free people is not so harmonious. Just like now, although there are many people watching around him, the guard captain knows that if a fight really breaks out, the only people he can rely on are the guards under him, and those free men will not help him. They will just make noises from the sidelines. Seeing that Wang Feng had already led his people onto the hurricane and was about to leave, the guard captain suddenly gritted his teeth and shouted again, "Go! Surround them, don't let them escape." Hearing the words of the guard captain, Wang Feng frowned and was furious. Why the hell is this idiot not done yet? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 533. Wang Feng turned around and looked at the guard captain, his eyes were indifferent. He had already sentenced the guard captain to death in his heart. He had made it very clear just now and told him not to pester him anymore. Now it seems that this guy did not mean what he said at all. Keep it in mind, if this is the case, let him go to hell to repent. Seeing the killing intent in Wang Feng's eyes, the guard captain knew that he had completely offended Wang Feng, but he didn't care. Although Wang Feng had controlled him just now, in the eyes of the guard captain, he and his men, but I didn't expect that Wang Feng would suddenly take action, and the speed would be so fast. Now that we know how fast he is, we will naturally start to be wary. Although the guns in the hands of his men have been taken away by this fast young man, they are all super evolved, and the cold on their backs weapons are their main weapons. The reason why I hold a gun is because one is that Bazhu continent focused on the development of military power before the end of the world. The guns they developed can be said to be world famous. Even after entering the end of the world, their weapons and ammunition reserves will definitely not be enough. Worry about not having enough. Another important reason is naturally to defend against the Devourers, because they have understood that they can attach their fire powers to the warheads to deal with the Devourers. Although those Devourers have not appeared for a long time, people in Bazhu continent still carry guns with them. In fact, even the Guardian soldiers of Hope Base are still fully armed. Each of them has long and short guns and grenades. Although they are rarely used, they will always be carried with them. This can be regarded as a habit of soldiers. After receiving the captain's order, the guards rushed forward, drew their weapons from behind, and surrounded the hurricane. At this time, the guard captain shouted to the survivors watching in the distance. "I am Cardiano, the guard captain of the Avengers. Now I am issuing a bounty mission. Those who have reached the level of super evolutionaries can come to help and catch these guys from the East continent. After the matter is over, each person will receive 200 Alliance coin." Hearing the shouts of the guard captain, the people watching around were a little moved. The Alliance coin that Inovik showed to Wang Feng was in denomination of 100, and the guard captain actually gave out 200 for each person. Price. According to Inovik, the Alliance coin with a face value of 100 can allow a person to spend a very wonderful night in the inner city, including wine, women, food, and hotels. From this point of view, At least the prices in the inner city are not high. Besides, there are so many people here, and Wang Feng and the others are only 6 people standing in the car now. This seems to be a good opportunity to make a fortune. At least, after doing this, those participants don't have to go out today, and can hang out in the inner city for 2 days. But fortunately, the guard captain still added a condition, that is, he must reach the strength of a super-evolved person before he can get the bounty. The super-evolved person they call is the awakened one. Therefore, although there are almost 1,000 people gathered around now, there are only less than 200 people who are actually gathered around to participate and earn the bounty. In fact, the guard captain Kadiano could completely request reinforcements from the inner city, but it was some distance away from the inner city. Kadiano was afraid that Wang Feng and the others would run away before their reinforcements arrived, and then they would directly attack him. There are bounty missions posted here, and anyway, they all add up to a few hundred alliance coins, which he can personally afford. And once reinforcements are requested, if someone with more power than himself gets involved, even if he gets a hurricane in the end, he will probably have nothing to do. Cardiano's goal is the hurricane. If Wang Feng is willing to sell it, he can afford even 1,000, let alone a few hundred alliance coins. However, it seems that Wang Feng has no intention of transferring the hurricane, so Kadiano Arnold had no choice but to use force. Seeing this scene, Inovic suddenly jumped onto the hurricane and shouted loudly, "Hey! Everyone! I think you'd better not get involved in this matter. These Easterners are very powerful. They are all level 9 zombies. It's easy to destroy, but it's not worth our efforts for 200 alliance coins. And he also helped us clean up the high-level zombies in Lux City. This time I am going to call everyone together to develop Lux. Hundreds of millions of zombies and a large amount of supplies, no matter what, it is better than how about 200 alliance coins." "That's right," Christopher from the crowd also stood up. "Those people I mentioned just now are them. Everyone has seen that Cardiano wanted to get that car, which is why so many things happened. It is better not to get involved in the Avengers matter. It's really not worth it to lose your life for 200 alliance coins." Wang Feng was a little surprised when he heard what these two people said. He didn't expect that these two guys who came back with him would have the courage to come forward. Although they were said to be free men and not under the jurisdiction of the Avengers, after all, they still have to live here. Unlike me, I will leave soon, and after the two of them do this, their lives here will probably not be too easy. After all, the Avengers are actually in control of Dilit City. Who? However, Wang Feng couldn't say anything now. Their words had already been spoken. Even if he tried to stop them, it was too late. However, Wang Feng found that the words of Inovic and Christopher were still very effective. The nearly 200 awakened people who had originally surrounded them hesitated for a moment after hearing what they said, and slowly returned to the periphery. In the end, only less than 50 people were left. Wang Feng didn't care much about the remaining awakened people who wanted to make some extra money. If they really wanted to fight, these more than 100 people couldn't stop them at all. However, Wang Feng didn't want to kill them here, as that might cause the situation to get completely out of control. This is the North Continent, not the East Continent. No matter how strong Wang Feng and his people are, they can't fight against so many people. Zhang Ruhao, missiles are ready to launch. Target, Dilit Inner City. Standing on top of the hurricane, Wang Feng shouted the sentence coldly, and with Wang Feng's words, the missile launch holes on both sides of the hurricane opened, revealing the hideous faces of the ground-to-ground missiles inside. "Stop!" Seeing the situation in front of him, Cardiano was immediately shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. He was a man of knowledge, and he saw at a glance that these two missiles were definitely not Wang Feng's bluff. Although the real headquarters of the Avengers is now located in the underground fortress of Dilit City, even if these two missiles are launched, they will not cause any damage to the fortress, but that is the most core place, only the real high-level and military personnel can enter, and others still live on the ground. And although the defense of the inner city is very good, it is all aimed at zombies and mutant beasts. As for missiles, they didn't think that zombies could evolve to use thermal weapons, so naturally they didn't bother to get this thing. Therefore, if these two missiles are launched and fall into the inner city, the loss will be quite large. He cannot afford this responsibility. Although he wants to get Hurricane, it seems that the price is beyond his imagination. If you launch missiles, you will be completely hostile to us, and you will not survive. Looking at Wang Feng, Cardiano said with a gloomy face. Really? Should we try? Wang Feng looked at Cardiano with cold eyes. I just said that my patience is not very good. I asked you not to mess with me. It seems that you want me to prove it. Cardiano opened his mouth and was about to speak, but suddenly looked back in the direction of the inner city. A convoy was driving out and heading in this direction. Because he wanted to take Hurricane alone, and he did not expect Wang Feng to be so difficult, Cardiano did not call for reinforcements before. Now it seems that they have noticed the movement here a long time ago. Now they found that Hurricane was going to launch missiles, and they couldn't help but get nervous, so they stopped watching the excitement and prepared to intervene in this matter. Seeing the convoy, Wang Feng did not act immediately. He originally wanted to kill Cardiano directly, but since someone came, he would wait. Since he came to solve the problem, the person who came should at least have a higher status than Cardiano, right? When Cardiano saw the first car clearly, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous, because this car was the special car of their top leader. In other words, no matter what the outcome of this matter was, at least Wang Feng's goal was achieved. Wind, seeing the approaching convoy, Inovik said nervously. That car is the special car of the leader of the Avengers. You'd better be careful. I heard that this guy's methods are quite cruel. If you can't do it, you can drive this big guy away. With these two missiles, they dare not do anything to you. Thank you, Inovik, but I think I'd better wait until the leader comes to see what kind of person this guy is. Moreover, even if I want to leave, I have to collect the bill before leaving. Wang Feng said calmly, and then looked at Cardiano, but Cardiano did not pay attention to Wang Feng and the others at this time, but kept looking at the approaching convoy. When the convoy came nearby, the crowd that originally surrounded here naturally made way, allowing them to drive the car directly to the side of Hurricane. Moreover, their cars still surrounded Wang Feng and his Hurricane, which seemed to be unfriendly. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 534. Seeing the scene in front of him, Wang Feng sneered in his heart. It seemed that the leader's meaning was already very clear, otherwise, he would not have surrounded all the people like him as soon as he came up. After the convoy stopped, everyone in the car got out of the car and used the vehicle as a cover. They pointed their guns at Wang Feng and the others. Thermal weapons were more effective against humans, but they might not know that the people in the car were of the 6 people. Only Wang Feng and Xiu Jian were real humans, and even these two could not be killed by this hot weapon. Inovik, you'd better go down, otherwise, you may be regarded as our accomplice in a while. I don't want to implicate you, Wang Feng turned to Inovik and said. Bah! I, Inovik, am not the kind of guy with no balls. Now that I have stood up, I will not shrink back. Inovik spat on the ground and shouted loudly. Hey! Don't you, the Avengers, say you don't care about what's going on outside? What are you doing here now? It's you who set the rules, and it's you who are breaking them now. I want to see what you have to say. The Avengers did say at the beginning that they would not interfere with anything that happened between humans in the outer city, and they would only take action unless there was an invasion by a foreign enemy. That's why Cardiano originally thought of bringing Wang Feng and the others into the inner city first. Who knows that Wang Feng is not as easy to bully as he thought, and that's why the trouble has reached this point. Innovik. When we say not to interfere, we mean things between you free people. But the two parties in the conflict now, one is our escort, and the other is someone who does not belong to our continent. It seems that they are not involved. Doesn't it violate the rules set by our Avengers? A strong man who was also wearing snow camouflage and looked to be in his 50s or 60s looked up at Innovik and said, then looked at Wang Feng and narrowed his eyes. Young man. Don't be afraid. If you are not hostile to us, we will not hurt you. These young men are surrounding you just to prevent others. Ha 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 ha, Wang Feng looked at this guy and suddenly laughed, afraid. Just these people don't seem to be able to scare us. In addition, I think you need to remind your subordinates that if their guns suddenly the fire went off and hit those two missiles. Wang Feng then pointed to his head and said, I know that there are several sniper rifles aimed at my head, but I bet that if they really shoot at me, someone will die, and it will definitely not be me. Hearing Wang Feng's words, the leader was shocked. There were indeed snipers targeting Wang Feng, but even the closest one among them was on a floor 2 kilometers away. And no matter what the snipers said, they are all masters of disguise. How does this young-looking little guy know this? Of course Wang Feng didn't know, but before the end of the world, he was a sniper in the special forces. Out of professional habits, he had found several locations around him that were suitable for sniper positions. Whether it is used to ambush him or protect the city gate, it is quite ideal. If these people do not use it, they are not worthy of being called a fighting nation. Now that I say it, it really shocked the leader. The leader hesitated for a moment, then stretched his hand in the air and made a gesture. Then he looked at Wang Feng and said, Young man, you are very arrogant, but it seems that you have the ability to be arrogant. Now, you can tell me, what happened here? This idiot wants to steal my car, but I won't give it to him, Wang Feng pointed at Cardiano and said succinctly. Cardiano opened his mouth to say something, but found that he had nothing to defend. After all, the excuse he just used was a bit too weak. If he really dared to say it in front of the leader, Wang Feng would ask him what he meant. He couldn't think of prohibited items. The leader looked at Cardiano, then at Wang Feng, and said lightly, it seems that my men are a little greedy. I will strengthen my management of them. This matter is over here. In addition, what I want to know is, you are an Easterner, what are you doing here? Is your Dongzhou continent already occupied by those terrifying ogres? Humph. We call those alien visitors devourers. This is also their real name. Occupation does not. And I think that before the devourers brood comes, the remaining devourers will not have the guts to be in East continent again. The mainland appears. Wang Feng snorted coldly and said. Not only did we kill one of their commanders, we also killed their spaceship, so we got a lot of information about these devourers, including their hierarchy, composition, and the time of arrival of their follow-up troops, etc. Our group left our own continent and came to you. Originally we just wanted to share this information with you. After all, we are all human beings. However, it seems that you don't really need this thing. Having said this, Wang Feng looked at the leader and sneered, you can ask your people to give way, we will leave now. Can't let them go. Before the leader could make a decision, Cardiano shouted loudly. Ah! By the way. Thank you for reminding me. If you didn't say anything, I almost forgot. Before I leave, I have to collect a bill before leaving. Wang Feng smiled, looked at Cardiano and said. I remember I reminded you before not to challenge my patience, but counting the words just now, this is already the third time, right? At this point, Wang Feng's face turned cold, and then he shouted in a low voice, Qiujian. Kill this guy. As soon as Wang Feng finished speaking, he suddenly activated the blast, jumped up from the hurricane, and pounced condescendingly towards Cardiano. Cardiano showed no sign of weakness, and grabbed the handle of the machete behind him with his backhand, preparing to attack. However, even though he had just seen Wang Feng's speed and was already prepared in his heart, Cardiano still did not block Wang Feng's fatal blow. When he just raised his machete, Cardiano's body suddenly stiffened, and a line of blood slowly appeared on his forehead. At this time, Wang Feng had returned to the hurricane. Before he could stand still, the blade of apocalypse in Wang Feng's hand suddenly disappeared, replaced by a bold and heavy-duty sniper rifle, seriously injured. Wang Feng lifted the seriously injured man and pointed it at a building in his 2 o'clock direction. After taking aim for a moment, he pulled the trigger. A huge gunshot sounded. The sniper in that direction did not even scream. The bullet that seriously injured his upper body was torn into pieces, and he died instantly. After the gunfire, Wang Feng put away his serious injury and resumed his previous posture. He stood on the top of the hurricane and looked at Cardiano coldly. This series of processes sounds very long. In fact, in less than 3 seconds, an awakener and an evolver died in the hands of Wang Feng. The reason why he was seriously injured was because of the ambush. The sniper at 2 o'clock was more than 2 kilometers away from Wang Feng. This distance is still too far for the bow of apocalypse. It was also the sniper who pointed his back. He had already put down his sniper rifle after receiving the leader's gesture, but from a distance he saw something seemed to be happening here. So he picked up the sniper rifle again, using the scope of the sniper rifle to take a closer look at the situation here. Unexpectedly, the moment Wang Feng jumped onto the hurricane, he happened to catch the reflection in his scope, so without saying a word, he directly took out the seriously injured person in Tiankai space, and killed him before he could react. It was only then that Cardiano's body began to slowly separate. Then, blood spurted out, and his internal organs poured out. Wang Feng's knife just now actually split Cardiano in half. The thick smell of blood mixed with a stinky smell spread instantly, and the leader's face turned livid at this time, staring at Wang Feng fiercely. "You dare to kill my men in front of me," the leader looked at Wang Feng with a gloomy expression. "I have warned him before, he is seeking death," Wang Feng said expressionlessly. "I remember what I said just now, that matter will be over after I come." Wang Feng's attitude made the leader even more annoyed. "It's over when you say it's over," Wang Feng said disdainfully. "Maybe you are the head here, but you are not my head. I don't have to listen to your command. Your words have no effect on me. Young man, I just said that you are arrogant. Now it seems that I was right. But you have to know that this is my territory. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to get out?" The leader stared at Wang Feng and said, "Young man, it's not good for people to be too arrogant. If you are not arrogant, can you still be called a young man? Old sir. You just said something else, that although I am arrogant, I have the capital to be arrogant." "You are also right about this," Wang Feng said tit for tat. "I can tell you now that I will definitely be able to leave here today. As for what your dillet will look like after I leave, it depends on your decision." Wang Feng glanced at the soldiers around him who were still holding guns and pointing their muzzles at them. He suddenly smiled, looked at the leader again and said, "Do you believe it? As long as you give the order to attack, no one on our side will die, and none of them will be left, including you." Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 535. Hearing Wang Feng's words, the leader's face was uncertain. He now regretted why he ran over without much precautions. He should have brought at least a few strong people from the management, instead of coming out with a guard company like now. The leader sneered at Wang Feng's words that none of them would die. He felt that once he ordered an attack, under the chaotic gunfire, Wang Feng and his group might be the only one who could escape with his speed. But now he really didn't dare to order the shooting. First, he was afraid that if the missile on the car exploded, it would be estimated that the people around would be buried with Wang Feng and his group. It didn't matter for others. The key was that the leader himself was still here. Once the missile exploded, he couldn't escape. Another reason was that he was too close to Wang Feng. Judging from the situation when he killed Cardiano just now, the leader thought that if Wang Feng also hit him, there would be a great chance that his ending would be the same as Cardiano. Given that Cardiano's death was very ugly, the leader held back his anger, but now there were so many people watching. If he let Wang Feng leave, it would seem that he would lose face and it would also affect the reputation of the Avengers. He wanted to make some requests, right? But Wang Feng was very strong. He was afraid that after he made some requests, Wang Feng would flatly refuse. Wouldn't he lose face even more? So for a moment, the leader didn't know what he should say. Seeing the leader's expression, Wang Feng roughly guessed what the leader was thinking. In fact, he was so arrogant just now because he wanted this effect. Sure enough, whether it was before or during the apocalypse, it was unwelcome to be warm-faced to a cold butt. It's not a good deal to rush to help others. Even if you help others, if you are too enthusiastic, it will arouse others' suspicion, because no one in the world will help others for no reason. Really selfless people, at least in this apocalypse, do not exist. Wang Feng came to the North Continent, one to see the situation in the North Continent, and the other to convey the information of the Devourer to them, especially now that the situation in the North Continent seems to be better than that in his own East Continent. At least, they have gathered all the living humans together. Although the situation in the entire Dilit city is still relatively chaotic, at least it is barely in order. In the end times, all kinds of darkness are inevitable. It is estimated that only Wang Feng and his people can reach the Hope Base. This is also because Wang Feng does not simply rely on force to suppress his subordinates, but because he has Apocalypse, all the strong people exist by relying on him, so naturally Wang Feng's position will never be shaken. This situation cannot be replicated in other bases. Now the population in Dilit far exceeds Wang Feng's Hope Base, and should have reached hundreds of millions of people. Judging from the scale of the base alone, it should be the largest base on the entire planet. If these people think that the Devourer has left and do not take precautions from now on, then when the Devourer's nest descends, their situation will naturally be beyond description, and humans will also suffer great losses, which is what Wang Feng does not want to see. So, looking at the leader who was still hesitating, Wang Feng sighed softly in his heart, and then took out a printed document from the apocalypse space and threw it to the leader. Forget it. After all, you are also human beings. This is not the time for us to fight each other. You should take a look at this first, and then consider whether to leave us behind. After taking the information, the leader glanced at Wang Feng, lowered his head and opened the information. The information contained all the information about the Devourer that the Hope Base had. In fact, it was not much. All added up, it was only 4 or 5 pages. This information was printed in the Hope Base at the beginning. Wang Feng and Duan Lei discussed for a long time, and finally decided to add all the information about the seal in the human body and the mastermind behind the Devourer. Now is the most critical moment for mankind. It is not the time to hide. If someone from other continents can break the seal, it will be a good thing for the whole mankind. Otherwise, when the Devourer's nest comes again, with the existing strength of mankind, it may be able to resist for a while, but it is very unlikely to destroy the nest. In just a few minutes, the leader of the Avengers read all the information in his hand. His face was very ugly because the news on it really shocked him. As for the authenticity of this information, the leader did not doubt it. The reason is very simple. If it was before the end of the world, the 4 continents of this planet were not very friendly. Because it is necessary to guard against people from other continents infiltrating into their own continents, plundering resources, or even occupying the entire continent. In fact, before the end of the world, there were indeed many wars between the four continents, and they fought for resources and land. But after entering the end of the world, this kind of thing no longer exists. First of all, in terms of land, due to the sharp decline in the global population, a large number of uninhabited areas have appeared on each continent. Take their northern continent for example. Before the end of the world, there were 7 countries with a population of nearly 1 billion. But now there are only less than 200 million survivors left, and the death rate is more than 4/5. In this case, it is completely meaningless to occupy much territory, because many cities on this continent are either empty dead cities or occupied by zombies. As for resources, let alone that. Although everyone needs resources, even if these guys from Dongzhou continent are given a lot of various resources, can they bring them back? A small-scale voyage may be successful, but a large-scale fleet voyage is no different from seeking death in this era. As for the air, let's not talk about the threat of those flying mutant beasts, nor the aircraft that have not been maintained for a year. Will anyone dare to fly them into the sky? The fuel for them to take off is doomed to this mode of transportation. Is impossible to adopt. In the end of the world, what resources are the most valuable? Food and fuel. No idiot would think of consuming fuel in exchange for any other supplies. What's more, if you want any supplies, you can organize your manpower to search for them in the fallen or abandoned cities on your continent. Where can they be used? Leaving the near in search of the far, traveling across oceans to search other continents. Although Bizhu continent originally had the smallest population, the leader of the Avengers did not believe that the population of Zizhu continent would be much greater than that of Bizhu continent. In fact, because Bizhu continent gathers all the survivors together, and because Dilit city was originally a fortress city and military town with a destiny, the existing population of Bizhu continent has surpassed all others. Continent. Is this true? The leader waved his hands to his soldiers to put away their weapons, then shook the information in his hand, looked at Wang Feng, and asked with some difficulty. I also hope this is not true. Wang Feng shook his head, but it is a pity that after our research, these are the answers we got. Your Bizhu continent is okay. At least, your current city looks pretty good and the people are concentrated. In our Dongzhou continent, everyone's gathering places are scattered. I don't know about other places, but the base only has a population of a few million. Wang Feng continued softly, however, you still need to discuss how to convey this news so that people can accept it more gently without causing a big riot. As for the rest, I can't do anything. Besides, I don't have much time. I have to go to Zizhu continent to convey this news and let them prepare. I hope that by then, we humans will still be able to fight against the Devourer. Bar. The leader looked at Wang Feng and then at the information in his hand. He seemed to be hesitant to speak. He wanted Wang Feng to stay here for a few more days. After all, Wang Feng and the others could obtain such detailed information. Who could if there's anything they haven't said yet? Just tell me if you have anything to say, Wang Feng said calmly. Now it seems that the leader of the Avengers no longer intends to embarrass him. So Wang Feng will just expose the previous things. Anyway, he has nothing to do. He lost a lot of money and even killed 2 of the opponent's people. Speaking of which, they should be the ones who suffered the loss. I would like to ask you to stay here for a few days. I still have many questions to ask about the information above. In addition, I don't know if you have any comments or suggestions. As long as they can help us, everyone will accept it. The leader of the Avengers Alliance said, and then he seemed to remember something, and quickly added, oh. By the way, my name is Ozgunko, and I am the Supreme Leader of the Avengers Alliance. If you are relieved, you can come to our headquarters. Go and talk. If you're not worried, we can do it right here. There are no suggestions. In fact, there are no suggestions. As for the combat effectiveness of the Devourer army, It has been clearly stated above. The vast majority of those who have come to our planet are the lowest beings among the devourers. Wang Feng thought for a while and said. But you should be aware of their combat power. Devourers are difficult to kill unless they use fire energy to directly burn their consciousness cores. However, their consciousness cores can change positions at will. This gives us the killing brought considerable difficulty. Mr. Wang. Please wait. Ozgiding suddenly raised his hand to stop Wang Feng's words, and then turned to look at the guards beside him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 536. Use the liaison immediately, call all the guys who are staying at the headquarters, and tell them that I have something to ask them, Augustine said to the guards around him, then turned to Wang Feng and said. Mr. Wang Feng, please wait a moment. I want to summon my subordinates to listen to what Mr. Wang has to say. Because the matter is very important, I am afraid that I will miss something. Wang Feng nodded gently and said nothing, because he suddenly thought that if there were so many survivors here, if they could be used, their strength would skyrocket, and he would also get great benefits. An idea quickly emerged in Wang Feng's mind. If it succeeded, it would at least achieve 4 goals with 1 stone, or even more. Compared with his own idea, the previous grievances were nothing. Innovik, Wang Feng turned to look at Innovik and asked, how many of the survivors in the outer city know you? Innovik was stunned for a moment, then shook his big head and said, anyway, basically everyone in Nanjing knows me. Wang Feng was greatly surprised. He didn't expect that Innovik was still a celebrity in this outer city. On the way here, Wang Feng had already had a general understanding of the situation in Dilit City. The total population of Dirit City should be more than 100 million but less than 200 million. Because no one cares about this, and people die almost every day, it is impossible to get an accurate number. Most of these survivors are engaged in planting, construction and other types of work in the inner city to maintain the operation of the entire city. A small number of people who do not want to be restrained live in the outer city. In fact, some of these people wanted to enter the inner city but were not accepted, so they had no choice but to live in the outer city. However, the world in the outer city is purely the law of the jungle. After such a long period of elimination, they cannot adapt. Basically all the people are almost dead. Therefore, there are now nearly 50 million people in the entire outer city, which is a huge number for Wang Feng, and although these people are not good men and women, they are definitely good in strength. And no matter how chaotic the outer city is, after such a long time, it already has its own rules. Although there are no explicit rules, generally speaking, they can still abide by some. After all, it is too chaotic and is not good for anyone. Even the awakened ones will be afraid of being beaten. Especially after the Devourer appeared on the Bizhu continent, there are very few tailites in the entire Dilit city. Big dispute. The outer city is divided into 4 urban areas, southeast, northwest, and northwest. Each area is home to more than 10 million people. In other words, there are more than 10 million people who know this Innovik. It seems that this guy is also not a simple character. You said you never tell lies, is that true? Wang Feng looked at Innovik and asked. Of course it's true, Innovik blushed. Although he had a beard all over his face, it was still obvious because the people in Bizhu continent had fair skin. I, Innovik, have never disdained lie and deceive. If you don't believe me, ask them. Well, Innovik does not tell lies. At least, I have never heard of anyone saying that he has lied to anyone. Augustine also stepped in, nodded and said, we wanted to absorb him into the team at the beginning. It's from the Avengers, but this guy is not used to being restrained, so he can just forget about it. I do have an idea, but I don't know if you are willing to do it. Wang Feng looked at Augustine and Inovik and said slowly. What do you think? They both asked together. Let's wait until they arrive. It will save you a lot of trouble. Wang Feng raised his head and looked in the direction of the inner city. Another convoy had already appeared in his sight. When Augustine and Inovik heard what Wang Feng said, they stopped asking questions and quietly waited for the arrival of the convoy, while Wang Feng looked up at the sky and thought silently. Mind your own thoughts. A few minutes later, the convoy arrived here, and at this time, because of the news, more and more survivors from the outer city came to watch the excitement, blocking the city gate here. However, Wang Feng was not worried that Augustine would suddenly fall out because his people arrived, because he believed that no matter who it was, after getting the details of the devourer, they would no longer be in the mood to engage in internal fighting. After the people in the car got out of the car and gathered around, Augustine did not introduce them one by one to Wang Feng. He knew that Wang Feng would leave soon, and there was no point in knowing their names and identities, so he directly introduced them to Wang Feng. The information was thrown to them and asked to read by themselves. Seeing the dozen or so people huddled together looking at the information, Wang Feng took out several pieces of information from the apocalypse space and gave them to Augustine, asking him to pass them on. Anyway, he had this stuff. I hope the base has printed thousands of copies, which is enough. After reading the information, those who had just arrived did not speak. Instead, they looked at me and I looked at you. Finally, their eyes all focused on Augustine. Don't look at me. I just found out about it. Mr. Wang Feng gave me the information. Augustine pointed at Wang Feng, who was still standing in the car. Hey. Boy, a strong man with a cigar in his mouth tilted his head and looked at Wang Feng. He seemed to be a little dissatisfied with Wang Feng's condescending position. He said to the information in Wang Feng's shaking hands, how do you prove that all this is true? I don't need proof. Wang Feng looked at him coldly and said, whether you believe it or not, what does it have to do with me? Okay. Shut up, Augustine shouted in a deep voice, I believe the information on it is true. If anyone doesn't believe it, you can go back now. After saying that, Augustine looked at these people. Seeing that Augustine was a little angry, these people stopped talking. Even the guy with a cigar in his mouth retreated into the crowd. You're not going to leave, right? Then listen carefully here. You are not allowed to raise any opinions. Let's discuss it together at the end, Augustine said again. He was afraid that these guys would irritate Wang Feng. After all, Wang Feng's performance just now showed that he was not a person with a good temper. Augustine was not afraid of Wang Feng. Now that all the people on his side were here, if there was a conflict, Augustine was confident that he could keep Wang Feng and others. However, after reading the information, Augustine now just wanted to know how to survive this disaster for mankind. Augustine is not the head of any country in the North Continent. On the contrary, he is the leader of the Blood Hand Gang, the largest underground organization in the North Continent. His organization has members in 7 countries across the North Continent, and its headquarters is located in Dilit City. Born in the slums, Augustine, who climbed up from the bottom step by step, truly understands that no matter what time it is, talent is the root of everything. It is precisely because of this that after the end of the world began, he led his men to clean up the zombies near him at a lightning speed. These members of the underground organization still have a lot of advantages in the early days of the end of the world. Because their usual work is to fight and kill, and they have no scruples. When they saw the zombies for the first time, no one hesitated at all. They drew out the weapons they carried with them and directly hacked to death the brothers who were drinking and playing cards with them just a moment ago, but now they have become zombies. Therefore, there are really not many people among them who are infected with the zombie virus because of being bitten. In comparison, those policemen and soldiers with hot weapons are not as unscrupulous as them. They dare not kill people directly, even if the person has been infected and turned into a zombie, but before confirming what happened, they still have a lot of concerns. Even a large part of the humans who died at the beginning of the apocalypse were killed because they wanted to rescue the people around them who had turned into zombies. Augustine cleared all the zombies around him at the fastest speed, and then gathered all his men who could be gathered, and started to rescue and kill zombies in Dilit City. Dilit City, because of Augustine's existence, became one of the cities with relatively few deaths at the beginning of the apocalypse. After completely controlling Dilit City, Augustine issued the broadcast. Although the satellite communication system was paralyzed as early as the moment when the Sky Fire came, the Blood Hand Gang is an underground organization with a long history. Among them, they still retain the ancient communication facilities that use lines. It is precisely because of this facility that the members of the Red Hand Party understood what happened in the shortest time possible, and reacted quickly, leading the people around them to start killing zombies. Moreover, under Augustine's call, these small leaders in various cities spread the news while retreating, so that the people of all countries in the North Continent knew that Dilit was calling for survivors. It can be said that the current huge base in the North Continent was built because of Augustine. Of course, his success, like Wang Feng's Hope Base, is unrepeatable. It is estimated that when the end of the world occurs, only the Red Hand Party will still have that kind of ancient communication equipment. It is precisely because of the persistence of those old antiques in the Blood Hand Party that these communication facilities have not been abandoned. In this end of the world, they have become the most reliable communication equipment. Therefore, after the situation stabilized, Augustine naturally became the actual controller of the base. However, because the Blood Hand Gang had a very bad reputation in the North Continent, it could even be said to be notorious. If he did not change his name, it would be difficult to recruit people. Moreover, Augustine's position as leader was originally obtained through intrigue and robbery. He had basically no sense of belonging to the Blood Hand Gang, so he changed his name to the Avengers. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 537. Now the Avengers have come out of the underground and have become the actual controller of the North Continent. Although their territory is only the scope of the city of Dilit, it is much better than before. It is precisely because the top leaders of the Avengers are basically from the underworld, so the inner city of Dilit, their actual control area, will not prohibit streetwalkers, drugs, and gambling, because they all rely on this to make a fortune. But after all, it is different now. They almost control all the surviving population of a continent. Eating, drinking, defecating, and urinating, which they didn't care about before, must also be developed. After all, the source of food must be guaranteed. Therefore, Augustine also used a large number of officials from various countries to support the city of Dilit. Because there are people from all walks of life, Augustine's staff is mixed and uneven. The guard captain Kadiano, who was killed by Wang Feng, was a small leader of the Blood Hand Gang before. He became the guard captain of Dilit City by relying on his relationship before the end of the world and his luck as an awakener. However, he was originally a bandit leader, so he became greedy when he saw Wang Feng's hurricane. As a result, he didn't get the car, but lost his life. Now Augustine will certainly not care about this matter. Relying on his many years of experience in society, Augustine has confirmed the authenticity of this information in his heart. Since there will be a terrifying enemy invasion in this world in less than a year, he is naturally in no mood to consider other things now. Originally, Augustine was satisfied with the current power. In the 2,000-year history of the Blood Hand Gang, he was the first to develop the Blood Hand Gang to its current scale. But after seeing the information Wang Feng gave him, Augustine realized that if he could not resist the invasion of those devourers, the power he had obtained would only be exercised for less than a year. What was the point of fighting for it if he could only exercise the power for a year? So Augustine summoned all the management to listen to Wang Feng's suggestions and prepare for the future invasion of devourers. Of course, he called the leaders in charge of military and defense construction. As for those in charge of people's livelihood, they only had to grow the land and ensure the supply of food. When everyone was quiet, Augustine said to Wang Feng, "Mr. Wang, please start." Augustine did not care about Wang Feng still standing on the roof of the hurricane, looking down on them. One reason was that he knew that Wang Feng might still be wary of them. As for another, for a gangster who grew up from the bottom, forbearance is a quality he definitely has. Wang Feng nodded, then looked at everyone present and said, "First of all, I must let you know how powerful the enemy we humans are about to face, that is, the devourers. I know that you have fought with them before and should have a certain understanding of them, but what you need to know is that the devourers you have encountered are the highest level, that is, the elite devourers. In the future, there will even be high-level devourers such as commanders and even nest guards on our planet. And their number will definitely be beyond our imagination. As for the difference in strength, who is the strongest among you?" Hearing Wang Feng's words, a guy who looked like a real bear stood up. He was 2 meters and 2 meters tall and weighed at least more than 300 kilograms. Among humans, he can be called a behemoth. Turiyaha, the commander-in-chief of the Guardian Alliance, after the big guy stood up, he knocked his chest with his arm and shouted in a rough voice. This Turiyaha is an awakener, and his ability is similar to Lu Feng's invincible impact. Moreover, he is also an awakener of fire attribute, so when fighting against the devourer, he can be regarded as shining, especially because he also has a passive physical recovery ability, so the fighting time is far longer than other awakeners of the same level. He said that he was the strongest, and other people who were familiar with him had no dissatisfaction. Even Inovik nodded slightly, obviously knowing the strength of this Turiyaha. Seeing Turiyaha, Wang Feng shook his head gently, and then said, "You also haven't reached the standard of a level 5 creature. You may be able to deal with ordinary devourers, but if it is an elite devourer, you will be in danger, let alone a commander-level devourer who is stronger than the elite. Eastern man, if you don't accept it, then let's have a fight." Wang Feng's words made Turiyaha very dissatisfied. He couldn't help but shout at Wang Feng, "A little guy like you, I can crush you with one punch." "Are you ready?" Looking at Turiyaha, Wang Feng asked calmly. "Mr. Wang," Augustine shouted anxiously. Wang Feng glanced at Augustine, nodded gently, and gave him a reassuring look, indicating that he would not kill Turiyaha. However, it was because of Augustine and Wang Feng's actions that Turiyaha felt insulted. He has always praised himself as the best fighter in the world, even the best fighter in the world. Now Wang Feng actually said that he would hold back in the battle with him, and Augustine showed a relieved expression, which made Turiyaha feel very angry. He secretly decided in his heart that although he could not kill this little guy from the east, he would at least break one of his arms and one of his legs to let him know that the anger of the strongest man in the world is not something that everyone can bear. Wang Feng looked at Turiyaha and confirmed again, "Are you ready?" "If you are ready, I will start." "Come on, little guy. I will let you know." Turiyaha roared angrily, and clenched his fists and collided them in front of his chest. However, his body suddenly became stiff before his fists that collided with each other were completely separated. Because a knife suddenly appeared on his neck, it was the blade of Apocalypse, and the owner of the knife, Wang Feng, was looking at him calmly at this time, and whispered, "It should be considered over, right?" Then, Wang Feng put away his weapon and returned to the roof of Hurricane again. This is the third time that Wang Feng has launched the Hurricane today. Each time, it only took 1 or 2 seconds. Wang Feng also did it intentionally. If he did not launch the Hurricane, although he could also take down this Turiyaha, it would be too time-consuming and the shock to other viewers would be far from enough. Only by defeating this Turiyaha cleanly and neatly can he deter others. He is now in someone else's territory. Wang Feng does not want to kill people to establish his prestige, because he thinks that the Stillet City may be a good stronghold to contain the Devourer in the future. With solid defense, a large population, and the fierceness of the fighting nation, it can be foreseen that once this place can be fully integrated and become one, it will definitely be able to hold back part of the Devourer army in the future. Therefore, for Wang Feng, Tolyaha's challenge was just what he wanted. These newcomers did not see Wang Feng's move before, and now they just took this opportunity to show their strength. No matter when, only with strength can you have the right to speak. Only when they see your strength and your suggestions, will they seriously consider it. Wang Feng has no time to persuade them earnestly, so now he will launch the hurricane so simply. Wang Feng has returned to the hurricane, and Tolyaha has completely reacted. He stood there with a complicated look in his eyes, while other people began to discuss in a low voice. They all knew Tolyaha's bravery, and no one thought that he would lose without holding on for a round. Looking at the situation just now, Wang Feng has already shown mercy, otherwise, Wang Feng's knife could completely cut off Tolyaha's head. Tolyaha has not reached the level of a level 5 creature. Once the head falls to the ground, it is real death. Although Wang Feng relied on speed to attack just now, the onlookers knew that if it was them, they would also end up like Tolyaha. Wang Feng's speed was too fast, and they had no time to react. If it wasn't for the fact that when Wang Feng rushed to Tolyaha, his body also created a phantom, these people almost thought that Wang Feng was a space-based mutant. Especially before Wang Feng attacked, he repeatedly asked Tolyaha if he was ready, so none of these people could say that Wang Feng was a sneak attack. Moreover, in the eyes of this fighting nation, fighting is fighting, no matter what method the opponent uses, as long as they can win. They only look at the results, not the process. No one considers whether it is fair or not, because if it is a real enemy, Tolyaha is now dead, and a dead person cannot condemn the opponent for not following the rules. Augustine watched coldly, and he saw Wang Feng's speed again. This was the second time he saw Wang Feng attack. Now he has defined Wang Feng as an existence that must not be provoked. It's not only because of the information Wang Feng brought, but more because of Wang Feng's strength. If you can't be sure to kill this kind of person in one go, then you should never provoke him. This is a truth Augustine summed up after 40 or 50 years of underworld experience. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 538. However, although the people of the fighting nation think so, no one thinks that Wang Feng's victory is any trick. Instead, they think Wang Feng's strength is terrifying. However, Bizhu continent is not just a race of the fighting nation. A group of people who had been hiding to watch the excitement were also whispering at this time. They were relatively short in stature. In fact, compared with the strong men of the fighting nation, Wang Feng and the others from the Dongzhou continent, who were called Orientals, it does appear to be a little thinner. This is determined by the human race, the living environment and temperature. But there are two small countries on the Bizhu main road. Their appearance is similar to that of the people in the Dongzhou continent, with the same yellow skin and dark eyes. However, the figures of these people are smaller than the average people in the Dongzhou continent. Height is a few centimeters shorter. Their country is located in the southwest corner of Bizhu continent, and its territory is very small. Originally, people on Bizhu continent did not like them very much, because it is said that the ancestors of these people came from Dongzhou continent, and there the appearance is also very different from that of Bizhu people. Therefore, people on Bizhu continent do not regard them as their compatriots, but regard them as people from Dongzhou continent. People from these two races have also launched an invasion of Dongzhou continent and want to it occupies a place in Dongzhou continent. However, their invasion was pushed back by the Dongzhou continent, and in the end they could only huddle in a corner of the Bizhu continent, barely surviving because. However, although they live a very ordinary life, these people are quite capable of boasting. They claim to be the Zhuhan nation and the Tianzhou nation. The Zhuhan nation may be because of the climate of the Bizhu continent. For the race of their system, it's a bit extremely cold, hence the name. As for the Sky Mask nation, it may be because they are all more interested in the Sky Mask, so they call themselves the Sky Mask nation. The movies they shoot can be said to be world famous, but the women in them basically don't wear hoods. Yes, it is very suspected that the name is not worthy of the name. Although the countries of these two races are both small countries, the Blood Hand Party has still established branches in their countries and has developed very well, even to the point where it can influence the political direction of their countries. It is precisely because of this that after the end of the world, they also got the message, so they abandoned their own country and came to Dilit, because both of their countries are close to the sea. In this end of the world, the coast must be there is no inland security. However, because of their image, they did not have a satisfactory life after arriving in Dilit city. Fortunately, before the end of the world, they were relatively supportive of the Blood Hand Party, so they reluctantly found a place to live in the outer city. As for entering the inner city, they basically don't have to think about it. Their total remaining population is not large now, totaling just over 2 million. Since they cannot integrate into other people's circles, they basically form their own teams to search for supplies or kill zombies. In addition, they also reclaimed a lot of farmland in the outer city and planted a large number of crops. From time to time, they used this food to make friends with some people among the fighting nations, so that their existence was recognized. Now, seeing that Tol Yaha, who is known as the #1 master of the fighting nation, was defeated in one move, these guys felt that their opportunity had come, so after a little discussion, they decided to stand up for Tol Yaha. This is a good opportunity to curry favor with Tol Aha. Once they gain Tol Aha's friendship, they will probably be able to sneak into the inner city. In that case, it will be much safer. After all, Thor Aha is also the commander-in-chief of the Avengers. His status is only lower than Augustine. He is a high-ranking boss-level figure. In normal times, it is difficult for them to even see him. Even if you want to please, you have no chance at all. But now, this opportunity appeared in front of them. If they missed it, it might be difficult to meet again in the future. So after discussing, the leaders of the two tribes walked out together, came to the front of the hurricane, and faced Wang. Feng Dai accused sternly. How come you, an Easterner, are so despicable? This is a duel. Not a killing on the battlefield, the leader of the Tianzhou tribe said angrily. That was a sneak attack. Our respected Lord Tol Aha was not ready yet, so you took advantage of the opportunity. The Orientals are really a despicable race, with no spirit of samurai at all. We, the nation of Skyshade, will never be like you people. That's right. Inferior races are inferior races. In a fair one-on-one duel, you unexpectedly attacked. This is absolutely unfair. Races like yours should not appear in this world and should be extinct. Besides, you think you can win. Is it okay? Commander Tol Aha has invincible powers, but you want to hurt Commander Tol Aha with your broken blade? It's ridiculous. The leader of the Zhuhan tribe also followed suit, and then, the two people stood aside, chattering endlessly, all of which were slanderous words to slander Dongzhou continent and Wang Feng. Wang Feng looked at these two people. Although they did not introduce themselves, Wang Feng could tell who they were at a glance, and his eyes suddenly became as cold as 1,000 years of ice. Are these people also under your protection? Wang Feng ignored these two people and looked at Augustine and asked. Augustine looked at them, shook his head and said, they are from the outer city and have nothing to do with our Avengers. Oh? Then you won't be unhappy if I kill them, right? Wang Feng looked at the two people and said. Of course. You're welcome, Augustine shrugged. Of course he would not stand up for these people. In fact, in the entire Bizhu continent, no one would take the initiative to get close to people from these two ethnic groups. Everyone knows that of these two ethnic groups, one is insidious and cruel, and the other is shameless. No matter how good the relationship is with other ethnic groups, no matter how good they are, if there is only one deal that involves a conflict of interest, they will immediately turn their backs and bite back. Although people from these two ethnic groups are always polite and friendly to everyone they meet. When meeting, they bow at 90 degrees and say sorry to trouble you, thank you all the time. But their true nature is already well known in the world. By the end of the world, they have gradually abandoned even that hypocritical appearance. Therefore, not only Augustine, but also other people, after hearing Wang Feng's words, no one was willing to stand up for him, including Tor Yaha. The two leaders were shocked when they heard Wang Feng's words, and shouted together, "All our people, come here." Then, one of the two leaders looked at Wang Feng and said, "What do you want to do? We are just telling the facts. Can't you, as a nation, accept criticism? You want to kill people just for such a trivial matter? This is simply crazy." The other one looked at Tor Yaha and said, "Commander Tor Yaha, this is our Bizhu continent. Do you just watch these Easterners committing crimes unscrupulously here? As the saying goes, it depends on the owner to beat a dog. They don't take you seriously." "I don't like raising dogs," Tor Yaha said expressionlessly. Although he failed, he was not shameless enough to look for excuses for his failure. As both sides of the battle, he knew very well that just now Wang Feng didn't kill him, he was showing mercy. Although he has invincibility, there was no time to activate it just now. If Wang Feng wanted to kill him, he would be a headless corpse now. If he loses, he loses. There is no excuse. Besides, if Wang Feng wants to kill him, he will lose. Er Yaha is not an idiot, how could he serve as a spearman for those two idiots? Wang Feng jumped out of the hurricane again. The blast he just launched still lasts a little longer. At least, there should be no problem in killing these two idiots. Seeing Wang Feng's movements, the two leaders immediately panicked. The leader of the Zhuhan nation activated his superpower the moment Wang Feng's body moved. A faint golden light shield appeared on his body. This guy's superpower is actually invincible? It seems that this guy is also very lucky, but his good luck only ends today. The leader of the Tianzhou nation did not have invincible skills, so he quickly retreated. Because he wanted to accuse Wang Feng, the two of them came to Wang Feng's location together. There was a long distance away from their own people. As a result, their people had no time to rescue these two people. Poof, Doda's head flew up, and the horrified expression of the leader of the Tianzhou nation was still frozen on this head. This was also the last expression he left to this world. Then, Wang Feng looked at the leader of the Zhuhan nation. Although the leader of the Zhuhan nation had an earthy complexion, he still forced himself to smile and said, "Ha ha. You want to kill me? Unexpected, right? I also have invincible powers, so I'll just look at you. How to kill me? Is your superpower permanent?" Wang Feng looked at the leader of the Zhuhan nation and asked calmly. "Humph. It can only last for 1 minute. But it's enough," the leader of the Zhuhan nation snorted, and then pointed behind him, "My people will be here soon, especially the people from the Sky Cover clan, you kill them, their leader, just wait for their crazy revenge." Ha 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 ha. Just when the leader of the Zhuhan clan was laughing hysterically, a long sword stabbed Wang Feng from behind without any sound. It penetrated the golden light shield very strangely, and then directly penetrated his big face. Inside his mouth, and what was even more strange was that after the sword pierced his head turned into nothingness. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 539. The leader of the Zhuhan tribe who activated the invincible shield ability was actually killed? Everyone who saw the scene was shocked at the same time. Although they didn't like these people, they still had some understanding of the strong ones among them. This guy's invincible shield had saved him many times. Even when fighting against the Devourer could not do anything to him during the duration of the invincible shield. Why did it suddenly fail this time? Seeing the golden mask that still existed on the body of the leader of the Zhuhan tribe, and the blood spurting out from his neck but being blocked by the mask, everyone couldn't help but be a little stunned, and then they all looked at the person standing behind Wang Feng. On the person who is taking back the long sword in his hand. This person is naturally Qiu Jian. The invincible shield is not actually invincible, but can withstand higher attack intensity. When Lu Feng launched the invincible impact to save Wang Feng, he was still almost cut into two pieces. If it weren't for Tiankai's potion, I'm afraid Lu Feng would have died long ago. Qiu Jian's destructive attribute happens to be the nemesis of this kind of superpower. In the face of the destructive attribute, the invincible shield has no possibility of defending. In fact, Wang Feng can also break this shield. Because all superpowers are activated by life energy, and Apocalypse, who can absorb all life energy, can be said to be the nemesis of all superpowers, and the stronger the superpower, the richer the life energy, and the more Apocalypse likes it. Qiu Jian put the long sword back into his scabbard, glanced at Wang Feng and said, "Why don't you just kill such a piece of trash? You're still in the mood to talk so much nonsense to him, and you're not afraid of dirtying your ears." Afterwards, Qiu Jian jumped directly onto the hurricane, pulled the six-barreled machine gun, and pointed the muzzle at the survivors of the Zhuhan and Tianzhou tribes who were desperately rushing here, and shouted, "I don't want to die, get out of the way." Hoola! Before Qiu Jian could finish his words, everyone in the direction where the six-barreled machine gun was pointing moved aside, making way for the survivors of the two races who were rushing over. Due to the obstruction of these people before, the people of these two tribes were not completely aware of the situation ahead. It was only because of the shouts of their leaders that they swarmed over. Now all the people in front got out of the way, and their eyes suddenly became clear, so they saw what was happening in front of them. Their leader has now become a headless corpse, lying on the ground, and Wang Feng is walking towards the hurricane. It is obvious that this man is the murderer of their leader, no matter what. At this moment, following Wang Feng's direction, they also saw the six-barreled machine gun with the barrel facing them, and Qiu Jian with a murderous look on his face behind the machine gun. "It's okay. He doesn't dare, run away." The guy running at the front was just about to say that Qiu Jian didn't dare to shoot, but suddenly he discovered that the barrel of the six-barreled machine gun had begun to rotate. At this moment, the guy couldn't help but lose his mind, immediately changed his words, and then turned around, "Just run." But maybe these people are a little confused, or they are just following the herd mentality. In this case, let alone there is no time to run at all, even if you have time, you should run to both sides, and run back. Even if you are an awakened person, how on earth can you outrun bullets? Moreover, the people following behind had not yet clearly seen the situation in front of them. They were still following their leader's instructions and pounced forward with their heads buried, directly blocking their retreat. They seemed to be willing to break their bodies to pieces for the sake of their leader. Their wish came true quickly. A second later, the six-barreled machine gun began to roar angrily, and countless bullets rained down on the survivors of the Zhuhan nation and Sky Cover nation. Those survivors who rushed at the front were suddenly covered with blood and flesh, their bodies were torn into pieces by bullets, screams and horrified shouts came one after another, and the scene was extremely chaotic. Others stood aside and watched the massacre feast quietly. Although if we only looked at the previous situation, it was normal for Wang Feng to kill the leader, but Qiu Jian's actions at this time were a bit excessive. But people in the entire Bizhu continent, and even people all over the world, know the grievances between these three countries. When these two small countries invaded the Dongzhou continent, Wang Feng and his country were the first to bear the brunt. They were attacked by these two small countries in their own country. Madness raged in the land for a short period of time. These two countries did a lot of crazy things in Wang Feng's country. They even slaughtered a city directly, and hundreds of thousands of people who had no power to resist died tragically under their butcher knives. It's a blood feud. Although these two small countries were driven out of the eastern continent in the end, Wang Feng and the people in his country always remembered this blood debt. Originally, Wang Feng planned to finish the matter here and then go to them. Trouble, I didn't expect these reckless guys to jump out on their own in order to please Toriyama. Although Wang Feng had not planned to start such a massacre before, but seeing Qiu Jian's actions, Wang Feng did not stop him. With this group of people who did not know life and death, he could not only establish his authority, but also claim back some of the previous blood debts. Why not? After Qiu Jian fired all the bullets from the six-barreled machine gun, he stopped because he felt that wasting bullets on such a person was not a wise choice. Besides, they would go to Zizhu continent later, and they didn't know yet. What will happen? After firing off this bullet chain, Qiu Jian felt that a lot of the suffocation in his heart had been relieved, so he put down the machine gun, stood up again, and looked at the bloody slaughterhouse he had created. Qiu Jian's personality has changed a lot. If Qiu Jian had just met Wang Feng, he would definitely not be able to do such a thing. The turning point of his change should be at Lu Wanting's Green Island camp. When Qiu Jian killed his girlfriend with his own hands and hung those people who insulted his girlfriend on the wall of the warehouse, Qiu Jian also left his kindness there. Now, the only person in the whole world who is still kind to him is Wang Feng, so Qiu Jian will always be by his side. As for other people, no matter who they are, as long as they offend him, kill them. Qiu Jian has understood that in this world, kindness and help may not be truly recognized by people, just like those who ravaged his girlfriend. Those people were originally able to survive until that time under his protection. But what did Qiu Jian get? Qiu Jian doesn't need the respect and love of others now. He just wants to use bloody killings to make people fear him, so that he can feel that he can gain a sense of security. From one extreme to another, Qiu Jian now, even more bloodthirsty than Lu Feng. Although the gunfire stopped, the wailing sounds were still heard. If these were ordinary people, it would be difficult for those who were shot to survive. However, those who rushed to the front just now were almost all awakened people, the worst. They are also evolvers, so after being shot, many people, although their bodies are mutilated, will not die for a while because of their tenacious vitality. They just keep rolling and wailing in the mud of flesh and blood. Looking at the minced meat here and the people squirming among the minced meat, even in the apocalypse, people who are used to seeing life and death feel hairy in their hearts. Although in Dilit city, especially in the outer city, there are killings almost every day. But those were only one or two, and the visual impact was far less shocking and bloody than the current one. Looking at Qiu Jian with an expressionless face, he put a new bullet belt into the six-barreled machine gun, and then closed the gun. The slight click, sound of closing made these people's hearts tremble. The other people in the car, including Wang Feng below, had no change in their expressions, as if they had just done a very ordinary thing. After this incident, the image of Wang Feng and the others has become an out-and-out devil in the hearts of those who witnessed the bloody massacre. Coupled with the strength that Wang Feng showed before, Wang Feng and the others are only 6 people. Actually suppress the tens of millions of people present. Augustine looked at Wang Feng, who was walking next to him, showed a wry smile, and said softly, "I'm a little lucky now that I didn't really have a conflict with you just now. That bastard Cardiano, almost because of his greed, we have a terrible enemy. Fortunately, We haven't become enemies yet. Wang Feng nodded in agreement. We don't want to make too many enemies. After all, there are not many humans left in this world. It is best for everyone to live in peace. We also don't like killing people. This, I can see. Augustine glanced at the flesh and blood slaughterhouse again, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said with a strange expression. Hearing Augustine's words, the other Avengers members also looked strange, but no one stood up to refute. Caveat. You bring some people to deal with it. Just help those who are injured, and then drive away all the others who are not injured. Augustine suddenly turned to Caveat and said. Although Caveat is a subordinate of Cardiano, he did not participate in the battle with Wang Feng just now. He did not even take out his gun. Seeing the situation in front of him, Caveat also broke into a cold sweat and secretly congratulated himself. I didn't help Cardiano just now. Now when he heard Augustine's words, he stood up quickly, but when he saw the bloody slaughterhouse, he couldn't help but swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and then led his team members and walked over. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 540. After watching Caveat pass by, Augustine turned around and shouted, Toriaha! Contact your troops and ask them to clear out all the people from the Juhan clan and the Skycover clan from now on. Get out and don't allow them to stay in Dilit city, including the outer city. Anyone who disobeys will be killed directly. Understood, Toriaha agreed, and then winked at the guy behind him. The guy nodded, then turned and left. To be able to become the leader of such a large base after the end of the world, and to be a leader with real power, Augustine is quite smart. From the behavior of Wang Feng and the others, he can see that even in the end of the world, Wang Feng and the others have not let go of their hatred for these two races at all. Now he seeks help from Wang Feng, and he also realizes the terrifying strength of Wang Feng and his group. Wang Feng himself is already perverted enough, and anyone around him can ignore the Juhan clan simply. The leader's invincible shield kills him directly. People flock together, and Augustine clearly felt that Xiao Wu and others who had not taken action should not be easy to mess with. No wonder Wang Feng told him before that if he ordered an attack, none of Wang Feng and the others would do it. Die. Just now, Augustine might have thought that Wang Feng was arrogant, but now, he felt that Wang Feng and the others might really have the strength. In this case, I might as well do a favor and expel all the people from the two countries who have irresolvable hatred with Wang Feng and the others. Anyway, I don't really like those thin guys. Mr. Wang, do you think should we change places? After Augustine gave his order, he looked at Wang Feng and said, after all, the scenery in front of him was really not suitable for viewing. Wang Feng looked back at the guards who were cleaning the flesh and blood, nodded and said, okay. Then find a place in the outer city. What I want to say has something to do with Inuvik. Inuvik? Since we are in the outer city, why don't you find one? Augustine turned to look at Inuvik and smiled. Inuvik looked at Wang Feng and nodded. What happened just now seemed to have no impact on Inuvik. After turning his head and looking around, he shouted to Christopher in the crowd. Chris! Go and vacate the church. The space there is big enough, and when we are discussing things, maybe God will help us come up with ideas. Chris agreed, then turned around and ran away. Inuvik turned around, grinned at Augustine and said, is the church okay? If someone is there, if someone wants to lie, maybe they will be scrupulous. Inuvik is a devout Christian, which is why he does not tell lies, because one of the 10 commandments is, do not bear false witness. Inuvik has a rough mind, and he cannot tell what kind of lies. What you say is called witness, so just don't tell lies, so as not to offend the God who is said to be able to destroy a planet in minutes. Augustine shook his head and smiled, no objection. Inuvik, you have to know that for a person who has no faith or does not believe in God, The church will not have any binding force on him. God is not in the church, but in your heart. Inovik shook his head and said, I don't understand this. I just know that if you lie in church, you will go to hell. On the contrary. Inovik, Augustine looked around him and said with a wry smile, I think we are in hell now. Ha 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 ha, Wang Feng laughed, then let's go to the church and discuss how to protect the hell we live in now. After what they said, the atmosphere that seemed very depressed just now seemed to become more relaxed. At least, when Wang Feng smiled, his image was still very sunny. At least, he definitely didn't look like the one who moved his hands and feet. A demon who kills people every time. The group of people soon came to the church that Inovik was talking about. Seeing the cross at the top of the church, Wang Feng couldn't help but think deeply. He thought about it and it seemed that he was very destined to the church. Every time he enters the church, he will encounter danger, and then he will survive and get great benefits. The battle with the black cat was in the church. In the end, he became an evolver and fought against Wang Tao and their lickers. It was also in the church that he succeeded in completely integrating the core of his life. This time, I don't know what will happen again. It would be best if I could break the seal. Wang Feng walked into the church while thinking wildly. It seems that churches all over the world have the same style, but there are some differences in size. However, this church was built before the end of the world. After the end of the world, more people came here to repent or worship. The greater the suffering, the easier it is for people to accept faith, and vice versa, because when everyone first comes into contact with faith, they want to get help or salvation. No billionaire will come to pray to God and say, there is too much money, please help me get some away. If there is such a person, he must be a lunatic, and God cannot save him. Since Christopher had led people to clean up the church before, the church was now very empty. There were only dozens of people like Wang Feng in the huge church. The only people who entered the church were Wang Feng and Xiu Jian. They all stayed outside with the hurricane. One was worried, and the other was because in this situation, they couldn't get a word in and felt awkward, so they simply stayed outside. After finding places to sit down, Augustine said to Wang Feng, Mr. Wang, please continue what you said before. Wang Feng nodded, and then said, I just fought with Commander Tol Yaha. Everyone should have seen it. If I really thought about it, Commander Tol Yaha should be dead by now. I'm not showing off my strength, but I want to let you know how terrifying our future enemy, the Devourer, is. Wang Feng said this, stretched out his hand to summon Apocalypse, then raised his left hand and stretched out his index finger. Then Apocalypse cut off a small section of his index finger with a wave, and blood suddenly spurted out. Everyone who saw the scene couldn't help but be stunned at the same time. What did this Oriental mean? Is it telling us, we can't defeat the Devourer at all, so everyone should commit suicide as soon as possible? Isn't this a bit too ridiculous? Fortunately, the scene just now was still fresh in everyone's memory, so no one spoke. They just looked at Wang Feng. After Wang Feng cut off a small section of his finger, he did not put down his hand, just looking at everyone. He held his injured hand in front of him. Gradually, everyone realized something was wrong, and their expressions began to become surprised. Many people stood up directly, took a few steps closer to Wang Feng, and stared at Wang Feng's severed finger with wide eyes. At this time, the severed finger is healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and this healing is not the normal kind. The skin slowly wraps the wound of the severed finger and finally seals it. Instead, it is constantly growing and recovering greatly. It means to become a complete finger. At this time, Wang Feng regretted a little. In fact, he should have called number 7 in just now, so that he would not have to cut off his own fingers, but cut off no 7's directly. Although the fingers could still grow back, it hurt after all. But after thinking about it, Number 7 is the devourer after all, and there is no blood in his body. Although it is more convenient to cut his fingers, it will reveal his identity, and he is not as heroic as he looks now. The word heroic was imagined by Wang Feng himself. Others may not think of Wang Feng in the same way. Although the words that come to their minds are the same two words, the meaning is definitely very different from the word heroic. After less than 10 minutes, Wang Feng's fingers were completely restored to their original appearance, and even his nails had grown back. Looking at the disbelieving expressions of everyone, Wang Feng put down his hand and said, "I'm not a magician, and it wasn't a magic show just now. I just want everyone to know that when you break through your current stage, you will step into the realm of 5th level creatures. At that time, any one of you can complete limb regeneration like me. This is different from your current healing. Although the awakened person's body also has a strong self-healing ability, it does not include the regeneration of limbs like I just did. Now I can even cut off my own arm or head. Recovery again, of course, will take longer. But even with my current strength, there is no way to fight against the commander-level devourer. Although we once killed a commander-level devourer in Dongzhou continent, we only relied on sneak attacks, coupled with various due to coincidence, we managed to kill a devourer commander in a thrilling manner. If it were one-on-one, I would be killed by a commander-level devourer without any suspense. Among the devourers who came to our planet this time, there were only 2 commander-level devourers. Just because they were killed by us. One of them was killed, so the other devourer commander recalled all the devourers. Now, we can't find any trace of the devourers. It is estimated that they are waiting for the brood to arrive, and the brood will arrive in less than a year from now. And, most importantly, when the devourer's nest comes here, the number of devourers who will appear on our planet is likely to be in the hundreds of millions, and the number of commander-level devourers will no longer be a few, but tens of thousands. At that time, the catastrophe for mankind and even the planet we live on will begin. Wang Feng looked at everyone, sighed and said, "That is a real catastrophe. Once it fails, not only us humans, but also our planet will be completely destroyed by the devourer."